Who invited you? Leave. Those were the first words my son said to me after I flew across states just to surprise him. Not hello. Not mom. Not even a smile. Just those 4 words, cold, sharp, and loud enough to cut straight through my heart. Before I go any further, if you love deep, emotional stories about family, pain, and unexpected strength, please subscribe, like this story, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss what comes next. And tell me in the comments which part of the world you're watching from, so I know I'm not telling this story alone. Now listen carefully, because this moment changed everything. I was standing right in front of him. My suitcase was still in my hand. My heart was full of hope. My face was smiling, even though my hands were shaking. I had not told him I was coming. I wanted it to be a surprise. A happy one. I imagined him saying, "You came all this way for me?" I imagined a hug. I imagined feeling like I still mattered. Instead, he looked at me like I did not belong there. His eyes moved quickly around, checking if anyone was watching. Then he leaned closer and spoke again, this time quieter, but even more painful. "You're embarrassing me," he said. "Please, just go." People were nearby, laughing, talking, living their lives. And there I was, standing like a mistake. I swallowed hard and forced a small laugh. "I can stay at a hotel," I said gently. "I just wanted to see you." He shook his head. "No," he said. "You shouldn't have come." Something cracked inside my chest. So I did the one thing he did not expect. I nodded. I turned around. And I walked away quietly. No shouting. No begging. No tears. At least, not where he could see them. Outside, the air felt heavy. My legs were weak as I sat on a bench near the airport shuttle. I stared at my shoes and asked myself one question again and again. When did I become someone he wanted to hide? I had raised him alone. I worked long hours. Some nights, I came home so tired I could barely stand. But I never missed his school events. Never missed his birthdays. Never missed telling him I loved him. I gave him everything I had. And now, this. I checked my phone. No call. No message. No apology. Just silence. Then my phone vibrated. One message appeared on the screen. It was not from my son. It was from someone who knew something about him. Something he never wanted me to find out. As I read the message, my hands began to shake. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Leaving quietly was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a change that would shake his world. And as I stood up slowly, staring at that message, one thought filled my mind. What I had just learned could destroy everything he thought was safe. And I had no idea what I was about to do next. I sat there for a long time, holding my phone like it might burn my skin. The message was short. Too short. But every word in it felt heavy. It said, "You need to know the truth about your son. He has been lying to you for years." I read it again. And again. And again. My heart started to beat fast. Not the kind of fast that comes from fear alone, but the kind that comes when something deep inside you knows that life is about to change. I looked around me. People were walking past, pulling their bags, laughing, talking on their phones. The world was moving like nothing had happened. But my world had stopped. I wanted to reply immediately. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to scream. But my fingers would not move. I remembered my son's face when he told me to leave. The shame in his eyes. The way he did not want anyone to see me standing next to him. At the time, I thought he was just embarrassed. Now, I was not so sure. I slowly typed back. "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "Someone who has watched him take advantage of you. Someone who stayed quiet for too long." My throat went dry. Take advantage of me? I leaned back on the bench and closed my eyes. My mind began to travel back through the years, looking for moments I had ignored, excuses I had made for him, signs I had chosen not to see. I thought about the money. How often he needed help. How he said he was between jobs. How he promised to pay me back. I thought about the documents he once asked me to sign. Just routine, he had said. I trust you, Mom, he had said. I trusted him. That was my mistake. My phone vibrated again. This time, the message was longer. He has been using your name to cover his mistakes, debts, decisions you never agreed to. I felt dizzy. I sat up straight, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Using my name? I typed back quickly now. What do you mean? There was a pause. Seconds felt like hours. Then the next message arrived. He put everything in your name. Everything that could fall apart. My breath caught in my chest. I suddenly understood why he did not want me there. Why he did not want to see my face. Why he wanted me gone. Because if I stayed, if I asked questions, if I got close, the truth would come out. I stood up from the bench, my legs shaking. I walked slowly, like I was afraid the ground might disappear under my feet. I found a quiet corner and sat down again. I needed answers. I needed proof. I typed, "Why are you telling me this now?" The reply came slowly this time. Because tomorrow, everything blows up. And he is planning to let you take the fall. I stared at the screen. Tomorrow. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. I thought about how he told me to leave. How calm he looked. How sure he was. He knew something was coming. And he wanted to make sure I was far away when it did. I wiped my eyes and forced myself to breathe. I was tired. I was hurt. But I was not weak. Not anymore. I opened my bag and pulled out an old folder I always carried with me. Inside were copies of papers I never bothered to look at closely. Papers I trusted him with. I had kept them because a small voice inside me always said, "Keep everything." That voice had saved me before. I flipped through the pages slowly. My name. Again and again. Loans. Agreements. Guarantees. My hands started to shake. I was suddenly very glad I had left quietly. If I had stayed, if I had argued, if I had caused a scene, I might never have seen this coming. My phone buzzed again. One final message appeared. If you want to protect yourself, do not go home. Do not call him. And whatever you do, do not let him know you know. I looked up, my heart racing. Protect myself. From my own son? I thought of the little boy I used to hold. The one who cried when he scraped his knee. The one who used to run into my arms. How did it come to this? I slowly stood up and looked around the airport again. For the first time, I did not feel like a visitor. I felt like someone standing at the edge of a storm. And deep down, I knew one thing for sure. The next move I made would decide everything. But as I reached into my bag to book a hotel and plan my next step, my phone rang. I froze. The caller ID showed a number I knew by heart. It was my son. Calling me. Right now. And the way my phone kept ringing told me something terrifying. He knew I was still nearby. The phone kept ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. I stared at the screen like it was a snake ready to strike. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. My fingers felt numb. Part of me wanted to answer. Another part of me wanted to throw the phone far away. I remembered the warning from the message. Do not let him know you know. I let the call ring until it stopped. A few seconds passed. Then the phone buzzed again. A message. Where are you? I swallowed hard. How did he know I was still close? I typed nothing. I erased words I never sent. I locked my phone and slipped it deep into my bag like hiding it could make the danger disappear. I stood up and walked toward the exit, my legs stiff, my mind racing. Every person I passed made me nervous. Every sound felt too loud. I kept looking over my shoulder, afraid I would see his face again. When I finally got outside, the air was cool, but my skin felt hot. I got into a taxi and gave the driver the name of a small hotel not far from the airport. My voice sounded calm, but inside, everything was shaking. As the car moved, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Answer me. I closed my eyes. This was not the voice of a son worried about his mother. This was the voice of someone afraid of being caught. The hotel was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your thoughts louder. I checked in, took the key, and went straight to my room. As soon as the door closed behind me, my knees gave way. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears fall. Not loud tears. Silent ones. The kind that hurt the most. I had come with love. With hope. With excitement. And now I was hiding from my own child. After a while, I wiped my face and stood up. Crying would not save me. Thinking would. I took out the folder again and spread the papers across the bed. This time, I read everything. Slowly. Line by line. Dates. Amounts. Signatures. My signature. Some of them looked strange. Slightly different. Like someone had copied it. My chest tightened. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A deadline. Tomorrow morning. That was when everything would be reviewed. Everything would be exposed. And according to these papers, I would be the one blamed. I felt sick. I reached for my phone and opened my messages. There was a new one from the unknown number. He just realized you're not on the plane. My breath caught. So he had checked. That meant he was watching. Waiting. Panicking. Another message followed. He needs you to stay quiet until tomorrow. That's why he's calling. I sat very still. For the first time, I saw the whole picture clearly. He did not want me gone forever. He wanted me gone until it was too late. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail notification appeared. I hesitated, then pressed play. His voice filled the room. Soft. Calm. Almost kind. Hey, listen. I'm sorry about earlier. I was stressed. You know how things are. Just call me back, okay? We'll talk. I laughed. A short, broken laugh. This voice was not for me. It was for control. I did not call back. Instead, I sent one simple message. I'm safe. I need rest. We'll talk later. I waited. The reply came fast. Where? I did not answer. Minutes passed. Then another message. Don't make this hard. My hands shook as I locked the phone again. That was when fear changed into something else. Something stronger. I stood up straight. All my life, I had been quiet, patient, giving. But tonight, I chose to listen to my instincts. I called the front desk and asked for a later checkout. I asked for privacy. I asked not to have my room number shared. Then I did something I had never done before. I started preparing. I took pictures of every document. I emailed copies to myself. I wrote down dates, names, numbers, every detail. I did not know exactly what would happen tomorrow. But I knew this. I would not be unprepared. As night fell, my phone buzzed again. One last message appeared before the screen went dark. It was from the unknown number. Tomorrow, he will ask you to sign one last thing. My heart stopped. I stared at the words, my mind racing. One last thing? I slowly placed the phone on the table and whispered to the empty room. You won't trick me again. But deep down, a terrible thought crept in. If he was planning one final move, that meant he was desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep would not come. Because tomorrow was no longer just about the truth. It was about survival. And somewhere out there, my son was planning his next step. Not knowing I was already one step ahead. I did not sleep. I closed my eyes, but my mind refused to rest. Every time I almost drifted off, a new thought pulled me back. Another memory, another detail, another question I had ignored for too long. When morning finally came, it felt heavy. Like the air itself knew something bad was waiting. I sat up slowly and reached for my phone. 3 missed calls. 5 messages. All from my son. The last message read, "We need to meet. This is important." I stared at the screen for a long time. Important. Yes. It was important. Just not in the way he meant. I remembered the warning. He will ask you to sign one last thing. My hands trembled as I placed the phone back on the table. I stood up, took a shower, and let the warm water run over my face. I looked at my reflection in the mirror afterward and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes looked tired, but they also looked awake. I dressed slowly and carefully, choosing simple clothes. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would draw attention. Then I sat at the small desk in the room and opened my bag. I checked everything again. The folder. The photos. The emails. I sent one more copy of the documents to an email address I trusted, just in case. If anything happened to my phone. If anything happened to me. The truth would still exist. My phone buzzed. Another message. "I'm coming to get you." My chest tightened. How did he know where I was? I quickly typed back. "I'm at a cafe. I need space." It was a lie. But it worked. The reply came slower this time. "Fine. Meet me in 1 hour." I did not respond. I needed time. I needed to think. I grabbed my bag and left the hotel through a side exit. I walked several blocks, keeping my head down, watching reflections in windows, checking who was behind me. When I finally sat down at a small coffee shop, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my cup. I forced myself to breathe. This was the moment. I thought about the little boy who used to hold my finger when crossing the street. I thought about the man who had told me to leave like I was nothing. They felt like 2 different people. And maybe they were. My phone buzzed again. A message from the unknown number. "He is panicking. He thinks you might talk." I typed back carefully. "What happens if I do?" The reply came after a long pause. "He loses everything. And he knows it." My heart sank. Everything. That meant he would not give up easily. I finished my drink and stood up. I had 2 choices. Run. Or face him. I chose to face him. When I arrived at the meeting place, he was already there. Pacing. Checking his phone. The moment he saw me, his face changed. Relief first. Then anger. Then a forced smile. "Hey," he said, opening his arms like nothing had happened. "I've been worried." I did not hug him. I sat down across from him. "We need to talk," he said quickly. "Things are complicated right now." I nodded slowly. He reached into his bag and pulled out a thin envelope. My heart began to race. "Just one thing," he said. "A small form. It's nothing serious." I looked at the envelope. Then at his face. "Why does it have to be today?" I asked softly. He swallowed. "Deadlines," he said. "You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. I reached into my bag and pulled out my glasses. I took the envelope. I opened it. And as my eyes moved over the paper, my blood turned cold. It was worse than I imagined. Much worse. This was not just about money. This was about blame. If I signed this, I would carry everything. Every mistake. Every lie. I looked up at him slowly. My voice was calm. "I need time to read this," I said. His jaw tightened. There's no time, he snapped, then quickly softened his tone. I mean, it's simple. I already explained it. I folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I won't sign anything today, I said. The smile dropped from his face. You have to, he said, his voice low. People nearby started to look. I leaned closer. I raised you, I said quietly. I know when you're lying. His face went pale. He stood up suddenly, knocking his chair back. Don't do this, he hissed. You don't understand what you're risking. I looked up at him. Oh, I understood. Perfectly. He grabbed his bag and walked away without another word. I stayed seated, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed. A message from the unknown number appeared. You did the right thing. But now he knows you're not blind. I stared at the screen. I had refused to sign. I had taken my first stand. But deep down, I knew this was far from over. Because when someone realizes they have lost control, they do not walk away quietly. And as I stepped outside, the sky darkening above me, one terrifying thought echoed in my mind. What would he do next, now that I said no? I walked away from that place with my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear through my chest. Every step felt heavy. Not because I was tired, but because I knew something had changed forever. I did not look back. I was afraid that if I did, I would see him watching me. Or worse, following me. I turned onto a busy street and blended into the crowd. People moved around me, laughing, talking, holding hands. Life was normal for them. For me, it felt like the ground was slowly cracking open. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was not a message. It was a photo. Sent from the unknown number. I stopped walking. My breath caught in my throat. The photo showed the envelope. The same one he had tried to make me sign. But this copy was different. It had notes written on it. Arrows. Circles. Words underlined in red. And at the bottom, one sentence stood out clearly. If she signs, she accepts full responsibility. My hands began to shake so badly I had to sit down on the edge of the sidewalk. So that was the plan. Not just to use me, but to destroy me. I typed quickly. How do you have this? The reply came after a few minutes. I worked where he filed it. I quit when I realized what he was doing. I felt sick. So many people had seen this coming. And I had been the only one blind. I stood up again and walked into a small public library nearby. It felt safe. Quiet. Neutral. I found a corner seat and sat down. I needed to think clearly. I needed to stop reacting. And start planning. I pulled out a notebook and began writing. Dates. Names. What he asked me to sign. What he said. What he avoided saying. As I wrote, patterns began to appear. Every time something went wrong in his life, I was the solution. Every time money was tight, I was the backup. Every time responsibility showed up, he pushed it toward me. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was from him. Why did you do that? I stared at the message. I did not answer. Another message came immediately. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. The words were familiar. He had used them before. When he needed money. When he wanted favors. When I asked questions. I typed back slowly. I won't sign anything without understanding it. The reply came fast. You don't trust me? I laughed quietly. Trust. That word had cost me everything. Before I could stop myself, I typed. You told me to leave. There was a long pause. Then a new message appeared. I was under pressure. I closed my eyes. Pressure does not turn love into cruelty. Pressure does not erase respect. Pressure only shows who a person really is. I locked my phone and placed it face down on the table. I stayed in that library for hours. Reading, thinking, preparing. When I finally stepped outside, the sun was already setting. That was when I noticed something strange. A car parked across the street. Engine running. Lights off. My stomach tightened. I crossed the street slowly. The car stayed. I walked faster. The car moved. My heart started to race. I turned sharply into another street. The car followed. Fear rushed through me like cold water. I ducked into a small store and stood near the window, pretending to look at items. The car stopped outside. Someone stayed inside, watching. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "Where are you?" I felt my knees weaken. He was not asking because he cared. He was asking because he needed control. I typed one word. Safe. The reply came almost instantly. "Come home. We can fix this." Home. I had never felt so far from it. My phone buzzed again. A message from the unknown number. "He is following you. Do not go anywhere private." My heart slammed against my ribs. So it was real. I was not imagining it. I stepped back from the window and forced myself to breathe. I needed people around me. Witnesses. Safety. I left the store and walked quickly toward a crowded area. Restaurants. Lights. Noise. The car stayed back now. Watching. Waiting. As I blended into the crowd, one terrifying truth became clear. He was not trying to fix anything. He was trying to make sure I stayed quiet. And as my phone buzzed again, this time with an incoming call, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The call was not from him. It was from a number marked private. And deep down I knew. This call was about to change everything. The phone kept ringing. Private. No name. No face. Just silence waiting on the other side. I stood still in the middle of the crowd, my heart beating so loudly I was sure someone nearby could hear it. I did not want to answer. But something inside me said this call mattered. I stepped into the doorway of a busy restaurant so I would not be alone, then slowly lifted the phone to my ear. "Hello," I said. For a moment, there was nothing. Then a voice spoke. Calm. Low. Serious. "You don't know me," the voice said. "But you are in danger." My legs went weak. I leaned against the wall. "Who is this?" I whispered. "I can't say much right now," the voice replied. "But you need to listen carefully. You were not supposed to stay. You were supposed to leave the city yesterday." My mouth went dry. So it was true. Everything was planned. "How do you know this?" I asked. There was a pause. "Because I was asked to help clean up the mess when it all falls apart," the voice said. And I refused. My hands started to shake. "What mess?" I asked. "The kind that destroys someone else's life to save another," the voice replied. I swallowed hard. "Are you talking about me?" "Yes," the voice said. "You were meant to take the blame." The call ended. Just like that. No goodbye. No explanation. I stared at my phone, my chest tight, my mind spinning. Two strangers had now warned me. Two different people. Both saying the same thing. This was not fear anymore. This was confirmation. I stepped fully inside the restaurant and sat down at the first empty table I saw. My hands were trembling so badly I had to hold them together. I ordered water I never drank. I needed time. I needed to disappear for a while. My phone buzzed again. A message from him. "Stop running." My breath caught. How did he know where I was? Another message followed. "You're making this worse for yourself." I felt something inside me harden. This was no longer about fear. This was about choice. I typed back slowly, carefully. "I need space." The reply came immediately. You don't get space. I stared at the words. That sentence told me everything. I locked my phone and slid it into my bag. I was done responding. I stayed in that restaurant until night fell. I watched families eat together. Mothers laugh with their children. Sons leaning close to listen. Each scene felt like a knife. When I finally left, I took a different route than before. Busy streets. Bright lights. Noise. I did not see the car again. But that did not mean I was safe. Back at the hotel, I asked to change rooms. I asked for a room on a different floor. I asked the staff not to transfer calls. They looked confused, but they agreed. Once inside, I locked the door and pushed a chair against it. Only then did I sit down and breathe. I pulled out my phone and checked my email. There was a new message. No subject. Just one line of text. Tomorrow morning, he will try a different approach. I closed my eyes. Of course he would. People like him never stop. They change tactics. They soften their voice. They pretend to care. I remembered the voicemail from before. I'm sorry. I was stressed. We'll talk. Lies wrapped in familiar words. I typed back one question. What should I do? The reply took longer this time. When it finally came, my heart sank. You need to be ready to walk away completely. Walk away. From my son. From the life I knew. From everything I thought was real. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. Could I do that? Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail notification. I hesitated, then pressed play. His voice sounded different now. Soft. Broken. Please, he said. I need you. I messed up. I can't fix this without you. I closed my eyes. There it was. The new approach. Not anger. Not threats. Need. I deleted the message. My phone buzzed again immediately. Another voicemail. This time his voice cracked. They're coming after me, he said. If you don't help me, everything is over. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because I believed him, but because a small part of me still wanted to save him. That part scared me the most. I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights blinked below like nothing was wrong. Tomorrow morning. Another move. Another test. I whispered to myself. Do not forget what he did. Do not forget how he looked at you. As I turned away from the window, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. Different from the others. Short. Chilling. He knows where you are now. My heart dropped. I looked at the door. Then at the window. Then back at my phone. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Tomorrow was no longer the danger. Tonight was. I stood frozen in the middle of the room. He knows where you are now. Those words echoed in my head again and again. I slowly turned the lock on the door, even though it was already locked. Then I checked it again. And again. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely feel the metal. I turned off the lights. The room fell into darkness, except for the thin glow from the city outside. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I moved quietly, every step slow and careful, and sat on the edge of the bed. I did not want to make a sound. My phone buzzed. I flinched. A message appeared. From him. I just want to talk. I felt a wave of fear mixed with anger rise inside me. Talk. After he told me to leave. After he tried to trap me. After he followed me. I did not reply. Another message came. Open the door. My breath stopped. I stared at the screen. How could he know my room? Then I heard it. Footsteps. Outside. Slow. Heavy. Stopping. Right in front of my door. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. A knock followed. Soft at first. Tap. Tap. Please, his voice said from the other side. I know you're in there. My whole body went cold. I did not move. I did not breathe. The knock came again, harder this time. Don't do this, he said. I just want to explain. Explain. That word sounded so small compared to the fear filling my chest. I slowly reached for my phone and typed with trembling fingers. He's at my door. The reply came almost instantly. Do not open it. Call the front desk now. I dialed with shaking hands. As the phone rang, his voice outside dropped lower. You're making a mistake, he said. You don't understand how bad this can get. The front desk finally answered. I'm not safe, I whispered. Someone is outside my room. There was a pause. Then footsteps ran down the hallway. The knocking stopped. I heard his footsteps moving away. Fast. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, my back against the bed, shaking uncontrollably. A few minutes later, security knocked. I did not open the door until I saw their uniforms through the peephole. They spoke quietly, asked questions, took notes. I said very little. I did not use his name. I just said, someone followed me. I was scared. They promised to keep watch. After they left, I locked the door again and sat in silence. My phone buzzed. A message from him. Why did you do that? I stared at the words. This time, I replied. You scared me. There was a long pause. Then another message. I'm sorry. I just panicked. Panicked. That word again. It was always panic. Stress. Pressure. Never responsibility. I placed the phone face down. I was done listening. The rest of the night passed slowly. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like danger. When morning finally came, sunlight filled the room, but it did not bring peace. It brought clarity. I could not stay here. Not another night. I packed quickly, quietly. As I zipped my bag, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From the unknown number. This is escalating. You need to leave the city today. I swallowed hard. Leave. Again. Just like before. But this time, it was different. This time, I was not running away. I was choosing myself. I booked the earliest flight out. As I headed toward the elevator, my phone buzzed once more. A final message from him. If you leave, don't come back. I stared at the screen. Then I typed one sentence. You already made that choice. I stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. But just before they did, a hand slid between them. The doors jolted back open. And there he stood, breathing hard, eyes wild, blocking my way. And in that moment I knew. This was no longer just about the truth. It was about getting out alive. The elevator doors froze halfway open. My heart stopped. His hand was still pressed between the doors, veins standing out, fingers shaking. He looked nothing like the boy I raised. His eyes were red, wild, desperate. Please, he said, breathing hard. Don't do this. The word please came too late. I stepped back slowly, my bag tight in my hand. My legs felt weak, but my mind was clear in a way it had never been before. Move, I said quietly. He shook his head. If you get on that plane, he said, lowering his voice, everything falls apart. I looked straight at him. That's not my fault. The elevator doors tried to close again, but he pushed harder. The metal groaned. You don't understand, he said. They're waiting. They're expecting you to fix this. Fix it. That word again. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp. I didn't break it, I said. You did. For a moment, he looked like he might cry. Then his face changed. Hard. Cold. If you walk away, he said, you'll regret it. That was when I knew. This was no longer a conversation. This was a threat. I stepped forward suddenly and slammed my hand on the emergency button. The alarm rang out loud and sharp, echoing through the hallway. He jumped back. The doors closed fast this time. I sank against the wall of the elevator, shaking from head to toe as it began to move downward. My phone buzzed violently in my bag. I didn't answer. When the doors opened in the lobby, I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't slow down. I pushed through the front doors and into the bright morning light, gasping like I had just escaped from underwater. I got into the first taxi I saw. "Airport," I said. "Please." As the car pulled away, I looked through the back window. He was standing outside the hotel. Watching. Not chasing. Just watching. That scared me more than anything else. At the airport, everything felt unreal. People lined up. Children laughed. Screens flashed flight times. Life was normal. Mine was not. I sat down near my gate and finally checked my phone. Dozens of messages. From him. From unknown numbers. From numbers I didn't recognize at all. I didn't open them. Then one message appeared at the top of the screen. From the unknown number that had been helping me. "He is making calls. Saying you stole documents." My blood ran cold. Stole. I typed quickly. "What does that mean?" The reply came fast. "He is trying to turn you into the problem. If authorities ask questions, say nothing without help." I looked around nervously. Uniforms. Security. Police. Were they watching me? I stood up, heart racing, and went into the restroom. I locked myself in a stall and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. A message from him. "You left with papers that don't belong to you." I closed my eyes. So this was the new plan. If he couldn't trap me with signatures, he would trap me with lies. I typed one last message to the unknown number. "What do I do now?" There was a long pause. Too long. Then the reply came. "You need protection. And you need to be ready to tell the whole story." Tell the whole story. My stomach twisted. That meant exposure. That meant no going back. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. My flight was ready. I stood up, my legs shaking, and joined the line. Every step felt like walking through deep water. Just as I handed my boarding pass to the agent, a voice called out behind me. "Excuse me. Ma'am." My heart slammed into my chest. I turned slowly. Two uniformed officers were standing a few feet away. One of them held a tablet. The other looked directly at me. "We need to ask you a few questions," he said calmly. "Please step aside." Around us, people kept moving. Flights boarding. Life continuing. But in that moment, everything narrowed to those words. Questions. Step aside. I tightened my grip on my bag, feeling the weight of the documents inside. The truth. The lies. The danger. And as I followed them away from the gate, one terrifying thought filled my mind. Had I escaped? Or walked straight into the trap he set for me? They led me away from the gate without touching me. That scared me more than if they had. People stared for a second, then looked away. No one wanted to know. Everyone was busy with their own lives. I felt small. Invisible. One of the officers spoke gently. "This won't take long." I nodded, even though my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break my ribs. They took me into a small room near the terminal. Plain walls. A table. 3 chairs. The door closed behind us with a soft click. That sound stayed in my head. The officer with the tablet sat down. The other stood near the door. "Please have a seat," the first one said. I sat. My hands were shaking, so I folded them together tightly. "We received a report," he said calmly. That you may be in possession of documents that do not belong to you. There it was. Exactly as I had been warned. I swallowed hard. They belong to me, I said quietly. The officer looked up. Can you explain? I took a deep breath. This was the moment. I could lie. I could cry. I could beg. But I remembered everything that had happened. The cold look. The envelope. The knock on the door. The threat in his voice. I sat up straighter. My name is on those documents, I said. I was asked to sign things I did not understand. When I refused, I was followed. I felt unsafe. The officer tapped something on the tablet. You're saying someone pressured you? Yes, I said. Someone very close to me. They exchanged a quick look. The one by the door shifted his weight. Did this person report you? The first officer asked. I hesitated, then nodded. Yes. There was a long silence. Then the officer sighed. We suspected that, he said. My heart skipped. You did? I asked. He leaned back slightly. The report we received didn't match the timeline, he said. And there were inconsistencies. Hope flickered inside me. Small. Fragile. What kind of inconsistencies? I asked. The caller was very aggressive, he said. Kept changing details. Pushed hard for immediate action. That sounded familiar. Too familiar. Do you have the documents with you? He asked. Yes, I said. My hands shook as I opened my bag and placed the folder on the table. He flipped through the papers slowly. Very slowly. His face changed. Not shock. Concern. Did you sign all of these? He asked. No, I said. Some of those signatures are not mine. He paused. Then he looked directly at me. Have you ever reported this before? I shook my head. No. I trusted him. The officer nodded slowly. That's often how this starts, he said quietly. The words hit me hard. This had happened before. To others. The door opened slightly, and another officer stepped in. She whispered something to the man with the tablet. His expression tightened. What is it? I asked, my voice barely steady. He looked at me carefully. The person who reported you, he said, has now made a second claim. My heart sank. What kind of claim? I asked. He hesitated, then said it. He says you're trying to flee to avoid responsibility. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Flee. I clenched my fists. That's not true, I said. I was trying to protect myself. I understand, he said. But from our side, we have to treat this carefully. I nodded. I understood too well. This is what he does, I said softly. He changes the story until he looks like the victim. The officer stared at me for a long moment. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He's on his way here. I froze. Here. I whispered. He's insisting on speaking to us in person, the officer said. He says he can clear everything up. Clear everything up. I felt dizzy. If he came here. If he spoke first. If he cried and played the caring child. Would they believe him? The officer stood up. We're not accusing you of anything, he said. But we need to hear both sides. Both sides. I nodded slowly, even though fear flooded my chest. Can I ask something? I said. Yes, he replied. Will I be alone in the room with him? He shook his head. No. That helped. A little. Minutes passed. Every second felt like an hour. I stared at the door, imagining it opening. Imagining his face. His voice. His lies. My phone buzzed silently in my bag. I did not look. Then footsteps approached. Voices outside. Louder. Angry. Then I heard him. I just want my papers back, he said sharply. She's confused. She's not well. My hands started to shake again. Not well. That was new. The door opened. And there he was. Standing in the doorway. Looking calm. Controlled. Nothing like the man who blocked the elevator. His eyes met mine. And in that look I saw it. Fear. Not for me. For himself. He smiled slightly, like everything was under control. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. This was the showdown he had been preparing for all along. And one wrong word could decide who they believed. And who they blamed. The room felt smaller the moment he stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft sound, but in my chest, it slammed shut like a cage. He did not look at me at first. He looked at the officers. Calm. Polite. Almost gentle. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "I'm really worried about her." That sentence hurt more than anything else he had said before. Worried. As if I were a problem to manage. As if I were not the one who had raised him. One of the officers gestured for him to sit. He did. Across from me. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same one he used when he wanted to look respectable. He finally looked at me. For just a second. In his eyes, I saw a silent message. "Please don't do this." I looked away. The officer with the tablet spoke first. "We've received 2 reports," he said. "One from you. One from her. The stories are very different." He nodded quickly. "I know," he said. "That's why I came. I want to clear this up before it gets worse." "Go ahead," the officer said. He took a deep breath and leaned forward. "She's been under a lot of stress," he said softly. "She flew in without telling anyone. She misunderstood some paperwork. Then she panicked and ran. I felt heat rise in my chest. Ran. She took documents that belong to my business," he continued. "Important documents. I just want them back so we can fix this quietly." Quietly. That word again. The officer turned to me. "Is that accurate?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "No." My voice sounded small, but it was steady. "That's not what happened." The officer nodded. "Explain." I took a deep breath. I spoke slowly, carefully. "He asked me to sign papers I did not understand," I said. "When I refused, he followed me. He came to my hotel room. He tried to stop me from leaving." He laughed softly. "That's not true," he said. "I was trying to protect her. She gets confused sometimes." Confused. I clenched my fists under the table. "Did you go to her hotel?" the officer asked him. He hesitated. Just for a moment. "Yes," he said. "To talk." "Did you knock on her door?" the officer asked. He swallowed. "Yes," he said again. "Because she wasn't answering her phone." The officer tapped on the tablet. "She called security," he said. Silence filled the room. His jaw tightened. "She overreacted," he said quickly. "I never threatened her." I leaned forward. "You told me I would regret leaving," I said quietly. He snapped his head toward me. "I never said that," he replied. The officer raised a hand. "Let's slow down," he said. He turned to him. "Did you tell her to leave when she arrived?" His face flushed. "I was under pressure," he said. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you did say it," the officer pressed. Another pause. "Yes," he admitted. "But that doesn't mean." The officer turned back to me. "You said some signatures may not be yours," he said. "Is that correct?" "Yes," I replied. He slid the documents toward him. "Did you sign all of these?" the officer asked him. He glanced at the papers. "Of course," he said. "She authorized everything." The officer leaned closer. "These signatures don't match," he said. The room went very quiet. I watched his face change. Not panic. Calculation. He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "She's my mother," he said. "Why would I ever hurt her?" That was when something inside me finally broke. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood anyway. "Because you thought I would never say no," I said. Everyone turned to me. "For years I trusted you," I continued. "I gave you money. I signed what you asked. I stayed quiet. And the moment I stopped doing that, you tried to erase me." He stood up too. "That's not fair," he said sharply. "You're twisting things." "No," I said. "I'm finally seeing them." The officer raised his voice. "Sit down. Both of you." We did. My heart was pounding, but I felt something else now. Strength. The officer closed the folder. "We're going to take these documents for review," he said. "No one is leaving until we sort this out." His eyes widened. "What?" he asked. "This may involve further investigation," the officer continued, "including how these documents were prepared." I saw fear flash across his face. Real fear. He looked at me again. This time, there was no apology. Only anger. As the officers stood and moved toward the door, one final message buzzed on my phone. I glanced down. It was from the unknown number. "This is it. What you say next will decide everything." I lifted my head. The officer turned back to me. "One last question," he said. "Are you willing to make a formal statement?" The room went silent. I looked at my son. At the boy I raised. At the man who tried to sacrifice me. And as I opened my mouth to answer, I realized, whatever I said next would end one life and begin another. The room was silent. Every eye was on me. The officer's question hung in the air like a weight pressing on my chest. "Are you willing to make a formal statement?" For a moment, I could not speak. I looked at him. At the child I once carried on my back. At the boy whose tears I wiped away. At the man who stood ready to let me fall so he could stand. My hands were shaking. But my voice was clear. "Yes," I said. "I am." Something changed in his face. Not anger. Not fear. Shock. He had never believed I would do this. The officer nodded and gestured for me to sit back down. Another officer entered the room with a recorder and a notepad. They asked me to start from the beginning. And this time, I did not protect him. I told them everything. How I raised him alone. How I trusted him without question. How he asked me to sign papers, just to help. How I flew to surprise him, only to be told, "Who invited you? Leave." How he followed me. How he tried to trap me with one last signature. How he tried to paint me as confused, unstable, and guilty. As I spoke, I felt something lift from my chest. Years of silence. Years of guilt. Years of thinking love meant sacrifice, no matter the cost. The officers listened carefully. They asked questions. They compared timelines. They reviewed the documents again. And slowly, the truth became impossible to ignore. The officer with the tablet finally looked at him. "We're going to need you to answer some questions," he said calmly. He stood up fast. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "She's emotional. She's tired." One of the officers stepped closer. "Please sit down," he said firmly. He did not sit. Instead, he turned to me. "You're really doing this?" he asked, his voice low. "After everything I've done for you?" I looked at him. "For me," I repeated softly. "You did everything for yourself." The officer took his arm. "Sir," he said, "you need to come with us." That was the moment. The exact moment. When he realized he had lost control. His shoulders dropped. His face went pale. He did not fight. He did not shout. He just stared at me as they led him out of the room. And in that stare, I saw something I had never seen before. Regret. Not because he hurt me, but because he failed. The door closed behind them. The room felt lighter. The officer turned back to me. "You did the right thing," he said gently. "This won't be easy. But you're safe now." Safe. I had not felt that word in a long time. They arranged help. Legal support. Protection. A place to stay far away from him. When I finally left the airport, the sun was setting. The sky was painted in soft orange and gold. I stood outside for a long moment, breathing deeply. For the first time in years, I was not afraid. I did not know what would happen next. I did not know how long the process would take. I did not know if my heart would ever fully heal. But I knew this. I had chosen myself. I had walked away quietly. And in doing so, I had changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss more powerful stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved to save yourself? Your story matters. And sometimes, choosing yourself is the bravest thing you'll ever do.